Awesome. Hey, Alex.
Hi, Lindsay. How are you?
I'm good. We are back for episode 2 of what we now call Spiritual Kink.
Such a
And
good name.
I know, we've been chit-chatting for a little while and catching up before we hop on to figure out what in the world we're going to talk about. But before we get started, we'll do quick introductions, especially if this is the first time, our five viewers, if you're watching, thank you, all five of you. But yeah, let's do quick introductions so that people know who we are and what we do and why in the world we even talk about these. We're even doing something like this.
Yeah, sure. Do you want to go first? Do I go first?
Yeah, why don't you go first?
Okay. I'm Alex Lang. I do DNA light energy weaving in my all my spare time. So it's like an energy healing method. I love helping people. I have some cool spirit guides that I like to channel from, and in general, I'm a big goofball, so I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and we live in two different hemispheres right now.
Right now, yeah. I'm in
Yeah,
Buenos Aires,
yeah.
Argentina. So it is the middle of summer here. It's very hot. I don't have air conditioning right now. I have a fan blasting. I hope it's not going into my mic, but
Nah.
uh, good. But yes, and then you are in the northern hemisphere, so your
Yes.
turn.
It's a, chilly 71 degrees right now in Texas.
That
I
sounds
know.
perfect. Are you
No,
kidding?
I woke up and I walked outside and I was like, this is gross. Like, why is it February and it's this hot? Like, I like some seasons. Like, give me some seasons. It's just we had like 3+ months this past year of 100-degree weather and like 80 to 90% humidity. And I was like, I'm fine. Like, I'm happy to have a break. I think I need to go live somewhere that's a little colder. Maybe at least for a couple more months. Anywho, awesome. Yeah, so we live in different hemispheres. We come from corporate America and have left corporate America to live our lives and really be able to use our gifts and the things that we've sort of been guided towards. So um I work usually in the spiritual mentorship space. I do energy work, hypnosis, and intuitive development programs based around the thing I needed when I was in deep with a pretty intense spiritual awakening. And um, now I feel like the longer I've been doing this work, I've taken classes, courses, all the fun things, but find myself more and more guided towards where my particular guides that I'm working with right now have been leading me. And so do a lot of work in the Akashic records with the Akasha cosmic groups, channel, all that fun stuff. And what's cool is that what I love about our conversations is like, Alex channels and works with completely different guides than I work with, but we find ourselves in very similar life paths and working on similar things. And so we thought that this space would be just a like really cool place because we would have these conversations, just she and I sending WhatsApp voice memos and um Instagram voice memos about all this
Yeah.
stuff. We were like, let's just have fun and like put this on YouTube. And maybe just putting some of these conversations out there will help other people or at least like contribute to elevating consciousness and these great shifts that are happening. So here we are. I love
Here
that
we
that
are.
just like came out too. Like, I can't believe I just said that.
You did that way better than I did mine.
I'm just like, wow, like I'm just like can talk about this stuff. Maybe recording those
Impressive.
podcasts are like helping. But yeah, so I was really impressed. I was like, I don't even have notes. Like I don't have notes. I used to have in the beginning when I used to like speak on podcasts or speak on anything, I would have like all these sticky notes up, like they would be like on my computer and like all over just to like, make sure I could hit these points. And now I just like have nothing. Like this is great. Sorry, I just had to like small
Hey,
win.
no, that's amazing. It's amazing. I'm just chaos. I'm walking chaos. I'm like, notes? What are those?
Yeah, it's the over uh a type, like, oh, like to like, I don't know what you call it, but yeah, I always am like copious note taker, blah blah blah, like remember. Well, because I think a lot too. See, welcome to our conversation. I have like very like like I was diagnosed a long time ago with ADHD, and so I have a really hard time paying attention. So the notes helped me be like, oh, what did you say, or what were we talking about? So it was like sort of my way to cope with not being able to stay engaged fully in a conversation, or like in a meeting or whatever, because I couldn't remember what people were saying because I was like in and out all the time. um
part part of me wearing big headphones like this, because I could look way more stylish with like cool little earbuds, is if I have auditory distractions in my ADHD. If I don't have like a full surround sound of this
yeah.
conversation, I'll be like, oh, a butterfly, or like taking notes does not work for me because then I'm focused on the notes. So it's like I have to be fully immersed in the sound, which is probably why I like music so much too. So
Oh yeah, that makes sense. You did tell me that one time that you're more of like an auditory learner. I'm like the opposite. That's probably one
yeah.
of my like least strong parts
Are
of
you more
myself.
visual?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm
that's
more
awesome.
visual.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
So,
So, yeah. Well,
but I
here we
am
are.
a,
So now
I
everyone knows
know.
we have ADHD. So that explains a lot about this podcast.
And we're both projectors in human design. So we are non-energy generating types. This, I was telling Alex, I stopped doing intuitive readings. This was my last week to do it. And so of course everybody was like booking. So I've had kind of a crazy week. Um, and which, grateful, and also helped remind me about how much downtime I really need, because
Mhm.
projectors shouldn't be working more than like 4 hours a day. So it's interesting because until you really, I think, explore human design, and especially if I tell somebody like, oh, you're a generator, or they find out they're a manifesting generator, they do generate their own energy. Us talking and working the way that we work is like completely foreign to them. They like cannot conceptualize even like the way that we need to work and manage our energy. And so it is really funny to, even when I work with one-on-one clients, I do like some business mentorship and coaching and stuff. I can tell like my generators like want to like knock things out really quickly, and I'm like, I have to sleep right now. And they're, or like, I've already put in hours for the day, so if you want me to show up fully for the work that you need me to do, like I have to do this tomorrow. Like, I can't
Yeah.
do like a copy review or whatever right now for you until the next day when I'm, you know,
Yeah. I mean, but the
calm
4
down.
hours or whatever that we put in, it's highly efficient. And I think that's
Hmm.
also kind of like a screwing with the mind of like a generator or a different energy type, that it's like when they're like, oh, we need XYZ done. I'm like, yeah, I'll do that tomorrow. And they're like, you should be working on this little by little throughout the week. I remember that was like when I was in corporate, they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, no, I'll knock it out tomorrow. And it's like, and I
Yeah.
would, and it would be
Yeah.
really, really good. And they're like, how did you just hyper focus on that for like 8 hours? I'm like, no, like two,
Yeah. Yeah.
two
Yeah. Yeah.
hours.
And it's hard to tell people, especially because like 80% of the world are like energy generating types, like the generators, manifesting generators, whatever. And it is hard to tell them the way that you work, because I remember my last boss, like you could just tell it like didn't click for her. So I had to stop telling her like the way that I like manage projects or the way that I sort of organize things, because it was like you could go all in and then I needed to pull out, where she was like, but why can't you consistently work for your 8+ hours, whatever you need to do, go to sleep, do it again. And I was like, if I did that,
I would
I would
die.
be I would die. Yeah. So yeah, it is funny. You kind of have to like, well, that's part of like the deprogramming process, right? Especially when you find out you're like a reflector or a projector, particularly, that you cannot work the way that the typical world expects you to work. Um, and that you have to sort of like find your own way and really set strong boundaries, because if you don't, you will consistently burn yourself out. Whereas like with the generators and the manifesting generators, it's really good for them to use their energy, but every day through by the end of the day, and it's just when people study it, like when they're an energy generating type and they really study and like come to a better understanding of the non-energy types, they get it more. But people who just like aren't that into it, but yeah, it was anyways, it was life changing for me.
Oh, same here. It explains so much. And it's also like, out of all the projector friends I have who have done their human design chart and they're like, oh, I'm a projector, I would say all but one have ADD or ADHD. That to me, I would love to see a study on that of like how many projectors in human design have some kind of diagnosed or underlying attention deficit. Because truly, I don't really believe in attention deficit that way. I don't think it's like an illness or whatever. I think of it as
It's like
what's
a
the
learning
trendy word?
style. It's like a
Yeah, and
learning
now
style.
what's trendy now? Neurodivergence is the new
Oh
trendy
yeah,
term
yeah.
of, and I'm like, yes, so we just process things differently. And lo and behold, so many of those people that I know are also uh types in human design that don't have an energy battery. Oh, that kind of makes sense of like, oh, I can hyper focus on something I enjoy for a few hours at a time and then I'm tired. Makes total sense to me. That makes total
Yeah.
sense to me. That's
I know. I know. Yeah, and it's like having to work around the people who just like don't understand that, particularly if like, when we were back in the corporate world and people like couldn't understand why I was so tired, or you could see, I remember when I was in New York and we had been just like building something out in the lab that was like so it just took, I mean, it was just like a really really long and hard several days, and we got to the end of the week and I was just standing there. I remember in the kitchen with one of our MDs talking, and I was like, John,
brain dead.
I was just, and you could see, and he was like, you look like a different person. And I said, I know. I said, I just like, I ran myself into the ground this week, but he's not that. I could totally tell he is totally an energy generator. So he can like kind of keep going. And it was a really interesting lesson for me. It's really interesting when you finally really see when you've like truly like run yourself into the ground. And just, but it's, yeah, it's like people don't always understand it, but it is an interesting, thing to learn when you and want to understand yourself better, I guess. So go do your
Yeah,
chart if you don't know what your human design is. Do some
yeah,
googling.
you can do your human design chart for free. Just Google it and it's gonna change your life. That's all I'm gonna say to the 1 to 5 people watching this.
Yeah. And
It's
it's
gonna
great
change your
for
life.
like, yeah, it's great for managing your time. It's great for like building a business, how you work, how you interact with people, how you set boundaries, because it's all around the type of like energy you are and how you use your energy and how your aura and your energy works and engages with others in this world. Helps with sales, like the way a projector sells versus a manifester is very different. The same way that a generator sells, very different. So it's
Totally.
just it's so, I think it's such an interesting concept. And then I know you like this, if you want to even go further, go explore gene keys.
Oh yeah, that's like a rabbit hole that I haven't like gone fully down. I read the
Same.
original Gene Keys, but of course there's what is that like the Venus series or whatever, like
Yeah, the pearl, the Venus, all that stuff.
yes.
Yeah,
But the Gene Keys book, I mean, we geeked out on that a few weeks
it's
ago,
like
but
a textbook.
l-
It's like this thick.
it's life changing. And every time I open that book, even like a random Gene Key, like it's no coincidence. The Gene Key I open, I'm supposed to read that one that day. That's why it
Mm,
opened to that page. Even on
yeah.
Kindle, I'll do like a random scroll and it'll open to a random Gene Key. And I'm like, ah, I needed that today. Thank you.
And I love that because when I got that book, I literally just looked at my gene keys. I literally never even thought about like reading the whole thing. I read the beginning
So
to
good.
understand it more. And you were like, yeah, I'm on this one. I'm like, but that's not your gene. You're like, no, I just read some of them. And I was like, oh, yeah, I guess
Yeah.
I could do that too. I just wanted to understand myself.
Yeah, and then recently I did it kind of backwards because like part of the big influential works behind Gene Keys is like the I Ching. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just read the I Ching for the first time recently. I had no idea it was like the shortest book on earth and like
Oh,
super,
really?
it's like so short, it's so simple. but it's like simple yet complicated. Like it's so simple that it makes you think really deeply about each part. And I was like, wow, that fits so interestingly with the Gene Keys. So I recommend
Yeah.
reading that too for anyone who hasn't.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that. Well, one of the things we talking about today, is how do I say this? Like the ego in the spiritual world and the spiritual journey and the balance and imbalances that we see in the way that people are deeply embedded in their ego but also call themselves very spiritual or do spiritual work. Maybe they have several 100,000 followers on Instagram or TikTok, and they are considered maybe like a thought leader or whatever in the spiritual space. And so, Alex and I thought this might be a fun thing to talk about as you are discerning or considering like who feels like they're in alignment for you, who do you want to learn from, grow with, all of those things. And as you're on your own spiritual journey, just like maybe thinking about like, where am I? How does the ego fit in? Does this sound like me? All of those sort of things to just ponder.
Yeah. Oof, this is such a meaty topic. 'Cause
Well, okay, I'll start with what I shared with you is I look at this at spiritual development and this sort of quote unquote ascension process as a spectrum. And you have this spiritual awakening and you go through, and this is just what I feel like I've noticed over time. You go through these different phases through the spectrum, I guess you could say. And the beginning is like this greater awareness and you're like, "Oh my gosh, like I look through life in a totally different way now. Everyone should see this. Everyone needs to experience this. Like, oh my gosh, stop drinking cow's milk and stop doing this and you need to read this book and oh my gosh, you have to read this book and like why can't you be more like me and be more like me? This is the better way. I know the best way. Please be." So that is sort of this immature very beginning stages of the sort of spectrum or whatever when you start, and then it evolves and there's certain characteristics that I see happening as people evolve and move out of this ego. But then, and you, Alex, especially, well, we'll just say this, you, Alex, have experienced and seen this a lot where you live around, get this healing, you have attachments, do this, and if you don't do it this way you're not going to be happy or you won't be free or you're going to have the evil eye on you and only I can clear and da 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 da. And those are very low energy type of, uh, I would call them healers in quotes or shamans in quotes, or people who like work in that space. That again is also like part of the spectrum but very like low frequency level. And then you start to move into like further down on the other end of the spectrum is this idea of oneness, this idea of yes, we have an ego but it does not control us, and there's this idea of doing things for the collective good and stepping outside of this central piece of who you think you are and really aligning with some of these like greater ideals, like Buddhism, Taoism, all these different topics you hear a lot, about. So I don't know if I explained that like the best, but that's sort of from just a high level perspective what I see happening. And so we're going to talk about some of the more like ego driven pieces that we see in the world and with
yeah,
different aspects of this topic.
thank you. I think it's a great starting point. I like that spectrum you described. Because, yeah, I mean, I started my curiosity with spirituality and more so like, how can I heal myself? How can I be a better person with Eastern philosophy? That's where I started as
Mm-hmm.
a teenager. Despite my German background, I'd already consumed all the German philosophy stuff, which can be super depressing and also like heavy. But then I moved into like reading a lot about Buddhism, and then, that was kind of my jumping off point. But like you said, it's like the ego is so interesting because as we progress on a spiritual path, and I think especially in a capitalist kind of world of market this, market that, the ego becomes a constant trap. And even in Buddhism and Taoism, there's a constant lesson of like, your ego doesn't go away. Your mind doesn't go away. That's why we have practices like meditation and whatever other, rituals work for you as a person to quiet the mind, aka the ego and the thoughts. But what I'm seeing now in this world of a lot of, spirituality on social media and in marketing and whatnot, it does feed the ego to become successful on a spiritual path, right? And I think the trick there is, in the trap for all of us humans, is to continue to manage that. Am I growing overconfident? Am I getting egocentric? Am I still on my path of I want to help others? Because if I help others, I help myself. We're all one, right? Like, is compassion still there, or am I doing it for the profit-based wins and the admiration and the external validation? I think that's the ego trap that is so challenging and that I see a lot right now on social media, is that a lot of people are looking for that external, like, that love me, admire me, follow me. I want a
Yeah.
following, which to me, that you're just becoming a cult leader at that point.
Yeah. Well, and I think about this one woman I used to follow, not who we were talking about before we got on the phone, but somebody totally different. She's very much into like galactic cosmic stuff. And I remember I listened to her several years ago and I was like, oh, I feel like her heart's in the right place. I love some of the things she talks about. And then over the years, I think as she's gotten bigger, her taglines, the topics she talks about are very like clickbaity. Like everything is so clickbaity and I'm like, what happened? And I think too sometimes we can lose ourselves and our true mission and our true gifts by trying to get the likes, by trying to expand our base instead of staying true. And so I have also seen, oh, like watching people as they've evolved and grown and maybe widened their audience, that sorry, I blew dry my hair right before I did this, and my hair is like always in my eye, so I'm like um
Hey, I got
but
bangs. I totally understand.
that's right, I could not do bangs. Like that would be like too extra sensory for me. I would be I can barely keep my hair down half the time. I just am like pull it up out of my face because I can't. It's I'm very sensitive to like I'm like overstimulated very easily. Anyways, welcome. So yeah, I've just seen people like go from being very connected, heart-centered, understanding what their mission is, to kind of becoming a little off balance and getting too connected into the 3D, and the growth and wanting to, and the ego aspect where it's like, I want to be seen more, I want to be seen, I want to be seen, let's let this grow, how can I do that, instead of letting some of the um these more deep service centered, soul aligned aspects of themselves really be the way that they lead, or what they lead with. And it's, it's made me really like be like unfollow or moving on, and it's time, my time with you here is done. And I don't, because yeah, it's just like I still can't get over just being like, remember scrolling one day and being like, everything you put out now is so clickbaity or fear mongery. It went from like you having really beautiful messages and things and information to share, channeled messages, stuff like that, to it being just, it's like fear mongery. And that's what can happen when things become out of balance. You then lead with fear, you then captivate with fear. And when people use fear to try to capture your attention, that should be an immediate red flag for you, that this is not anything that is going to serve me in any highest good.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, it's a slippery slope, and part of me is like, I'm really empathetic and compassionate for all these content creators out there, because it's like, one, I want to respect the fact that they've built a big following, but at the same time, it's like humbleness or humility, is that the noun? Humility of humble? Okay, cool. humility is so important of we have to stay humble. We have to remember none of us are perfect. I don't care what level you've reached on whatever spiritual path you're on. And it's not about the levels, right? It's about that we're all imperfect little humans or perfect little souls in imperfect little flesh suits on this planet. And we all signed up to learn a lot of lessons and help each other to go back to the all one source. And it's like if we stop maintaining ourselves, the ego comes right back in, or Maya, or whatever you want to call it, whatever baseline you come from, whatever foundation of belief you come from. And that's kind of, it disappoints me a lot, but like you said, that's where I guess my time here is done with reading this person's content, or it's a grieving process for me sometimes because of course we're already like so out of the norm of the
I know.
standard crowd on the planet or the average person's lifestyle, and then to see someone go into the fear mongering or the heavy marketing or just like losing their focus a little bit, it could be temporary, right? Until they rebalance themselves. I get a little sad because I'm like, no.
Yeah. And you want more from them. But I think like, from the lens of like non-attachment, at the same time, we've also come here to experience the contrast. So, that's also part of their journey is if they are leaning into some of this more lower frequency or these darker aspects or whatever it happens to be, that's part of the contrast they're choosing to experience right now. So, it's just one of those things where it's like that's why for me it's like okay, well, this isn't a line for anymore. So I leave instead of being like, oh my gosh, why did you change? This is so crazy. Just being like, this isn't aligning with me anymore. So like unfollow or I don't, whatever. Because that's their journey they're going on. And that's what they need to be doing for their soul's growth and evolution and experience, because all the experiences we came here to experience is all about contrast. So if that's the direction and that's the contrast they're experiencing, like, like off off you go, like have fun, like, and that's your thing. But yeah, again, it's like uh it's not for me, and so I just silently sort of, what's the
Yeah.
Simpson meme, where he just like backs into
Into the
the
hedge.
hedges. Yeah, like that's
I
like, so
love
that's just
that
me. It's
meme.
like, okay, I'm out, bye.
Into the bushes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that also brings me to like the receiving end, like the people that do follow those accounts or the audience, I'll call it. That's where discernment is so important. Like we all have to, just like everyone has to stay humble, we all have to stay discerning of like, does this content that I'm consuming, whether it's spiritual or not, I think this goes for anything online or whatever you're consuming, does the content I'm looking at actually make me feel good? Does it align to how I want to feel or who I want to be, right? Whether that's fashion, spirituality, whatever, coaching. And I think a lot of people just blindly follow a lot of times. They choose to just, I guess the term is give up their power
Mm-hmm.
and go into follow mode. Like, oh, I like this person, I admire this person, so I'm just going to consume whatever they put out and agree with it. I mean, goes for politics too and whatever else. But
Yeah.
so discernment is another big thing. Humility and discernment.
And
But
if you get, I would say if you get confused about discernment, critical thinking is another way, like instead of being passive, starting to like ask yourself questions. Like to me, critical
mm,
thinking and discernment are like similar type of words.
yeah, yeah, you're right. I also, oh, did I lose my thought? Welcome.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's not your fault. I was like, there it is, and now it's gone. Yeah, um, it's rough out there. Like we all have to just maintain ourselves every day. And I think, I don't know, I'm thinking about your spectrum, and the starting point you explained was like that excitement of like, oh, like I'm vegan now. Why isn't everyone else vegan? Or whatever that starting point is for someone, right?
Yeah.
And I think that goes hand in hand with wanting to lecture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm gonna throw in human design again. For certain types, like projectors, I can't just come up to someone and start giving them my viewpoint. Now, our energy type, you and I as projectors, we see around corners. It's one of our
Yeah.
biggest gifts of like, I might be talking to someone and my intuition will be like, yeah, you should probably like help them with this or give an idea. We're not supposed to do that uninvited because it usually backfires. And I think that early stage of a spiritual path when someone is really excited, it's not going to serve you well to go out and, tell your family to stop drinking milk or whatever, or get a prayer mat or whatever it is, or meditate every day, because not everyone is ready to receive that. And so finding that eloquence, I guess, and how to communicate what you're excited about with other people is also such a critical step on that early journey too, on the spectrum you described.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was totally that person. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe my parents do this stuff, or like they like drink cow's milk and like they don't do organic, and oh my gosh, they know all the pesticides they're putting in their body. I had Doritos last night. Like, what the fuck? Like,
Doritos are so good though. They're
dude, I haven't had them in so long, and I had them the other day and I was like, where have these been all my life? I love you so much.
Didn't you had a short kick of Doritos while you
Oh,
were
I bought them
here?
when I was in Argentina. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like one of those things where you have when you're a kid and then you buy them again. And you're like, they were like, oh yeah, I used to buy them. They were like when I wanted just like a little something. So yeah, when I was in Argentina, I would buy like little bags of Doritos as like my snacks. I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. I'll take this. Remember when we were in the kiosco and I was like, hi, I just I have a bottle of
You
wine and
bought like
Doritos
half
and
the kiosk.
Oreos and pasta, and they had like really great pasta. Anyways, but I was like,
They
hi.
did. Yeah.
Oh, it was great.
I speaking of good snacks that are totally not good for you, I remembered the existence of Pop Rocks like last week.
Dude,
And
yes. I have
talking
some in
about
my bedroom.
sensory joy. Oh my God. Pop Rocks for me are like, "Ah," like give me all
In
of them.
Okay, check this out. In Austin, I think the restaurant's still there, but they put Pop Rocks on their edamame. So like, oh no, they bring you, it looks like it's like salted Pop Rocks. So you like dip your edamame in this salt and then you pop. It was fucking, so you're like, I'm healthy and I'm having Pop Rocks with my with my
I'm
food. I
having
think the pop
edamame with exploding sucrose. I'm excited.
it was awesome because yeah, they were like unflavored, and I think they just like mixed them with salt, and you would like dip your. Anyways, sorry, that was like one of my favorite things ever, and yeah, everybody try it. Yeah, Pop Rocks are the
Apparently,
bomb.
apparently there is a specific pop rock type candy here in Argentina, and I will be on a hunt to find this. I've been asking a couple friends of like, what is it called? Where can I get it? Like, I will be eating pop
Yeah,
rocks here for sure.
I wonder if you can Google it. I wonder if they have like some American like wrote about it or something, on a
I
blog.
hope so. There's so much candy here. You saw how
That's what
much
I was
like
gonna say.
there's
I
so
know.
much candy here.
I was like, how's everybody so thin? There is shit everywhere. Like candy is everywhere. Candy and like the alfajores, those are everywhere. Oh
I
my
had one
gosh.
for breakfast today because I was like, I've been sweating for weeks straight. I deserve an
Yeah.
alfajor.
Yeah. Yeah, they're so good. And there's like so many anyways, I digress. I'll go back to Argentina any day. The food's so good.
Please come
The
back. You're
cookies.
always welcome here.
Maybe when it's not as hot though.
Yeah.
I'm learning through you that it's intense down there in the summer.
It's a warm summer, but I mean, I've written about this on my Instagram a few times now. Like with moving last year, I went from spring and summer in Texas. I don't know
I
how you'll
know.
survive to
Me
like
either.
early spring here and straight back into summer. So I'm like a year of hot, super cool, no regrets, but like I'm gonna be dancing on the street every day as soon as fall hits because I'm like, it's been a year without it. It's my favorite season. I
I
need it.
know. And you came from Seattle, so like you are used to having like actual like
I know.
colder, like not this crazy nonsense.
I
Oh
know. And I'm
man.
from like the Alps in Germany. So
Yeah.
I'm like, this is, I've done a full spectrum of seasons now. Like, and I know what I like. I know what I don't like. I can do heat. I'm glad it's not humid, but dry heat
Yeah.
I can do. It's just hot.
Oh, I feel for you so much. Even I'm like, oh, it's 71 here. It's gross. February, like what the heck?
I heard
Yeah,
the other
I
day it was like a nice 55 Fahrenheit in Seattle, and that sounds
that sounds
dreamy right now.
amazing. I
Yeah.
know. I was looking at flights, and weirdly enough, Seattle's like really cheap. But I was like, this really isn't the ideal time to go to Seattle, but also I could feel some winter temps maybe while I'm there, unless it's
They
like
have
raining
gotten
all the time.
snow and all that stuff from what I saw,
Oh,
but it's definitely the wettest time of year to go.
yeah,
So I don't
that's
know if you
that's probably
like
why
it
it was so
being.
cheap.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know.
Oh
I'm like,
man.
I've been to Seattle in February, over the summer, September. Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember all the times. But yeah, we never met when I was there, which is really funny.
No. I mean, we didn't meet in person until last summer, right before I moved.
Yeah, I was like, I'll come drive to Austin.
That was great. That was fun.
I
In that
know.
house I was staying in, that was
We
nice.
were in like our own little vortex.
Yeah,
Like I
we
didn't know what
were.
time it was, what day it was. We were just like playing
I
with
know.
cards.
And my brother bought us all that sushi
Oh my
because
gosh,
he's
that
an
sounds so
angel,
good.
such a
Yeah, I
sweetheart.
know. Now he's gonna come visit soon. That's so
I hope
exciting.
so. Yeah, I'm excited.
That's
Excited.
awesome. Oh,
Yeah,
that'll be so fun. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
pumped for you. Well, this was awesome. Okay, so is there anything else we can also like close out if you're feeling good, or we can keep talking about spiritual ego?
Spiritual ego. Do you want to talk about darkness? We
Yeah,
have
we
that on the
can.
list.
I know. I know.
You know, I love some good dark shit. So,
Yeah, I know. Dual Scorpios here. So I would love for you to just start. So in your energy weaving, this came up because you were seeing some themes, and um I would just love for you to talk about like what you were seeing first, like some of the themes that have been coming up in your sessions.
yeah. So recently I worked on someone who has fallen like incredibly ill with chronic fatigue. And when I did a session for that person, I encountered like, I've heard of evil eye, and I think evil eye has multiple definitions and descriptions across many different countries and cultures. Like it's a big thing here. I know it's a huge thing in Turkey as well. I'd never before like cured an evil eye. I've heard about it. But in this weaving session, like this evil eye was untreated for a long time, meaning like this evil eye has had time to evolve and whatever. And side note, all of us that do energy healing and different kind of spiritual work for people, like we all have different visuals and sensations that come up. So if I'm seeing something a certain way, I guarantee you 90% of the time, Lindsay would see it a little bit differently because, of course, we all have our own lens and perception of
Yeah.
things. Um, so for me, this evil eye had consumed the entire sacral chakra of this person. And it looked like the grossest, like zombie eyes, like eating this ball of light kind of thing. It was just nasty looking. Um, and it was very clear the messages I got. It's like no one cursed this person. It's not something that was given to this person. It was an accumulation of envy from a large audience, that many people envying this person, intentionally or not, had infiltrated this person's aura and affected their sacral chakra. And that is just an accumulation of darker energies, lower vibrations, whatever you want to call it. And removing that involved a lot of energy clearing. Um, in the sacral chakra, but as I progressed up through the other chakras, I was shown these like neural pathways up to the head. And I found a dark entity living in this person's like head space, creating brain fog or mind fog, whatever you want to call it. And that entity I had to invite back to the light and offer it a path out of having to be an energy sucker and attaching itself to other people. So that one was really fascinating to me. And then the other day I removed like a demonic energy off someone. That again was, I don't think someone put a curse on this person. It was just a weakened energy field with some lower vibration and energy leaks that allowed this entity to go, oh, that's an easy in. I need energy. I need to feed off something because I'm trapped in this lower vibration. And again, with that one took some negotiating. Sometimes I feel like I'm in a business meeting with these things. I'm like, yo, so I could totally help you like go to the light. If you're ready, then you don't have to do this like energy sucking anymore. And sometimes they're like, why? I'm like, well, like, let's talk about it. And then I feel like I'm doing sales with like a dark
That's
entity
so
and
funny.
eventually, yeah. So those are themes I've seen lately, but every single time the root cause is really a person having energy leaks or a weaker aura,
Mhm.
due to different things. I guess we could talk about what could cause that, but yeah, but
Yeah.
that's
No,
my
I think that's a really good point. I was literally having this conversation with a client yesterday about seeing energy leaks in her aura, and I had to clean up a bunch of shit. She had a lot of attachments, she had entities, and then on top of that, she had, because of the, like, anyways, the and so I that's exactly what you said is what I had to sort of talk to her about. Is I said, you have spread yourself so thin and depleted your energy that you now have energy leaks. And I said, the way that I saw it, and this is why when you're talking about the way we see stuff is so different, you'll laugh. I was shown like when you pull saran wrap and you keep pulling it, it'll open up a hole randomly.
mm.
And so I was seeing her energy field being pulled out and spread so thin that these holes were like pulling, tearing
Ah,
open in her
that's a way
field.
prettier visual than what I anyway,
And
continue.
so well, because for me it was like I was like asking like to get more information around some of this stuff that I was seeing, and that's what the image that they showed me, and I was like, oh, okay, saran wrap. um and so that's what I was having to tell her, is that like when your energy is depleted, you not only you will create like energy leaks in your energy field from being so spread thin, and so your energy is just down and drained, and you're more open and susceptible to these things that want to, that like entities, energies, whatever, that want to then attach to you and drain your energy or take your energy from you. And and that was where some of my coaching background came in, and we kind of had to talk about like, where are you putting yourself out there, whose energy are you. The other thing too, I think, that needs to be brought out, it's not even the things that you do, it's whose energy you're constantly connected with. Like, this client of mine is currently in a lawsuit with her aunt, who like the care facility like doesn't want them to take her away, so the care facility got her to sue them, and so they're in this like, so like her energy is like being pulled into this lawsuit, like this family energy, right? There's so many things that's just like eaten up tens of thousands of dollars of hers. So there's like this monetary piece, this emotional piece, this energy, like there's so many things. And that has nothing to do with, she also has a family and a very, high profile job and all these other things. And so she is just like, her energy is so depleted. And so we had to kind of talk about like where there are places she needs to pull back, what's really making her happy, all of these things. But it's really true, like when our energy is depleted, when we have spread ourselves too thin, when we're not taking care of ourselves, it's very easy. And I say all this, it's happened to me too. I am not like immune to this. But it's something that is you're much more susceptible to when you're not practicing good boundaries, when you're not standing up for yourself, when you're not managing your energy, when you're not protecting your energy, like all of these things matter, because then you have to come to us to clear your field because you have stuff that is gotten into it because you're not taking care of yourself.
And
And so, yeah.
I agree. The other thing I wanted to bring in too is like, and it's not just like, oh, when you're low vibe or depleted, it's
Mm-hmm.
also, let's say I'm going to call it level up. Let's say you've done a lot of shadow work recently and you're kind of raising your vibration. You also become ultra attractive. This is like that the first few weeks, that's usually when all of a sudden you might notice, like, I don't know, an ex might show up and call you, right? Or, like people might ask you for more favors, like let's say you help your mom out sometimes, like your mom might all of a sudden be like, you never help me out, right? Like I need more from you, I need more from you. It's that law of attraction piece of like, the lighter you glow or the higher you vibrate, whatever you want to call it, those that aren't are going to be like, boom, I want some of that, right? And because they also want to raise up, and instead of, the automatic way is to just be attracted to someone like that instead of doing your own work and raising your vibration. So the boundary piece holds true for both sides of the spectrum. Whether you're depleted or you're vibing really high, you're going to be an attractive kind of, you're either going to be an easy thing to attach to or an attractive thing to get pulled to, I guess is what I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
say.
Yeah,
And
like
so
the shiny things kind of idea. Yeah.
yes. And so I think one of my clients and friends I was talking to the other day, of something I'm just getting more consistent on again, and I thank friends in our area of work for reminding me of it, is like calling my energy back to myself every night before bed. It's something
Yeah.
we don't think about, especially me. I spend a lot of time alone. Like maybe I didn't interact with anyone that day, the thoughts I have about other people or them thinking of me, it's all an energy exchange
Yeah.
and you might not even realize it. So it's really important to just take a moment at night, 5 minutes, meditate, whatever, and call your energy back to yourself because it's yours. Like you should
Yeah.
have it.
And I think you made such a good point about, like, sometimes we think about it's the things we do that we attach our energy to. Your thoughts, when you decide to emotionally get invested in anything, you have entangled your energy with something else. So that's
Yeah.
why there's this big teaching or principle called non attachment. Because as soon as you become emotionally attached in anything, maybe a friend came to you and is like, dumping all this stuff on you about her boyfriend or husband or whatever, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it treated you. You have now entangled emotions. You have sent energy away from yourself and you have entangled your emotions elsewhere, which is why, like, as nice of a person as I am, I also set boundaries without a lot of, I think this is what I was going to talk about is, so yeah, so it does not have to be a physical thing that you do, or it can be, you can send energy and now you have entangled your energy in something else, and now that is, whatever. But the other thing I was going to say, and maybe I just lost my point too right now. um oh my gosh, what was it? Well, it must not be that important to say. If I lost it, it'll come back to me. Did you have anything?
I think along the lines of like, your thoughts are energy, your emotions are energy. So I think it's also about, I'm not, I don't expect every person to be super freaking introspective every day. We're all a little bit different. But taking just a few minutes in the morning or at night to think about, how am I feeling today? Right? Or how did I feel today? Like that is also energy. And I think, like you said, I love your point of, it's not about what you do. Like doing comes after the thinking and the feeling and whatever. All of that is energy that we're sending back and forth, whether you're talking to that person about what you're thinking or feeling or not. Like you are attaching energy, you're sending it back and forth. Um, and so I like everything you said about the non-attachment too. The and I think that's similar to the whole discernment piece. I think people can get confused about the word detachment and attachment because it's so used right now in this space too. But you know, you can love someone and not be fully attached. Like attachment
Mm-hmm.
in that way is actually not healthy, right? Like
Yeah.
detachment is important because that means you're not grasping at it, you're not seeking it, you're not trying to control it.
Yeah.
If that helps
Yeah.
people, the
Yeah.
two
Well,
people
and
watching this.
yeah, hey guys, what's up? Yeah, like, and that's why I go to the like entanglement versus like non-attachment. It's and I think of non-attachment too as being an observer. So you're just observing, like when so you're much nicer to darker entities. I don't even talk with them. Like I just move on and do what I need to do with them, and we do our thing. Like because I don't want to create any sort of attachment or entanglement within the conversation. And I do the same thing when I remove ghosts. The way that there is an opportunity to like learn more about them. Like who are they? Where did they come from? Da, da, da. And if I ever teach clients how to do that, I let them know. Like I'll be totally honest. Like I don't really engage with them a lot because I don't want to create any sort of entanglement with my energy. Um, and so I usually keep it pretty straightforward and very businesslike and, um, but that's for me. But that helps me to stay objective, helps me stay non-attached, helps me to ensure that I don't create any sort of entanglements, helps me make sure that I don't have energy leaks, that when I leave a client or a space or whatever, that I have not given my energy away. And it's much easier to then be able to manage, clear, and protect my energy in that way. So, um, even when we talked about clearing that demonic entity in New Hampshire, like the whole
Ah,
time.
yeah,
So that's
that was
like the whole
wild.
time it was like staying in this space of non-attachment and just observing. Take like I was basically like walking through the house, just taking in information, not allowing my fear or anything else to sort of activate and just staying neutral because I'm not trying to entangle myself with anything in this space. That takes a level of like training and like I think experience for people to get there because I wasn't always like that. And people have come to me to sort of learn how to do that work in the past. And I have to share oftentimes like that is kind of one of the biggest hurdles that you have to overcome is like, okay, you want to learn how to work with darker energies or entities, but you when you start from a place of fear, you're not going to be as effective because that is you're kind of meeting them at a lower level, but you're the one that sort of needs to create the space of non-attachment, and fear can entangle you within the energy sometimes. So it's a journey, but that's sort of just like a personal philosophy that I have on working with sort of dark energies and dense energies and entities and stuff like that. And even like I said, even ghosts, which neutral, like a lot of stuff's neutral in general, but like I'm not saying ghosts were anything negative. It could be like somebody was passing through. I just still just choose not to really like create any sort of connection with them and entangle my
Oh,
energy. But that's a personal philosophy.
I don't create connection with them. It's more like you can go to the light or you can fuck off the other direction. You know, it's like that
Yeah.
for me.
And I'm
I
sorry, I didn't mean to imply
no,
that
no,
that
no,
I thought
no,
you did that. Okay.
no, no, no. But I do agree with you on the fear piece, especially, and everything you said, because the one question I always get from people is like, well, aren't you scared when you meet a thing like that? And I'm never scared in that moment. And I think, and afterwards, I'm not scared. I'm not scared thinking about it now. It's more like I'm always like, ooh, cool. Let's fix that. Like I don't know. And I think we've talked about this before, you know, especially in your space of teaching others how to grow in this space too, or eventually become practitioners of their gifts once they discover them. The fear piece is so big. It's
Mhm.
and I think we talked about this in the last episode a little bit too, of like I would discourage anyone to monetize their gift and start a business of healing if they have fear around encountering specific things, because you don't know what you're going to encounter. Like you might have an intuitive feeling of like, is this person, am I aligned to work on this client, right? Like that's another
Mm-hmm.
level of discernment of like, I'm not going to work on every single person that reaches out to me. I've said no to people before.
Yeah.
Um, and but I'm not going to know what's in there until I tune into their energy. I'm not going to preemptively tune into their energy. That's just a moral matter. I always ask first if I can. But if you have fear within you around potentially encountering something dark, like you are not ready to do this kind of work professionally, um, because you still have work to do, right? Like, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that's such a good point because fear, it's one of the lowest vibrations, and it will pull you right back down as soon as you give into it.
Yeah.
Meaning, then you're susceptible, and the entanglement happens.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
and as somebody who has a lifetime of experience of engaging and
true.
entangling with dark entities and energies, I had a ton of fear. Fear ruled my life. I could not sleep in darkness. I always had a nightlight. My closet light was always on. My closet light was always also on because as a kid I didn't know what was going to come out of it. So I needed to be able to see. Like I could tell you all sorts of crazy stories. Um, but but then I say all of that, and now I work in a space of where I can do this, where I'm in this non-attachment energy or more neutral space, which is a huge 180 from where I used to be. And so, but how did that happen? It's because not because of the courses where I learned how to do this, not because I just kept at it. It was because I did my fucking work. I did my inner work. I started to peel back the layers and find myself in a much more empowered place, and that is what shifted everything. And I think that is the biggest thing, especially so many people, they want to be like, well, how do I get really good at this? Or how do I clear this? Or how do I become really effective at it? And Alex and I are always like, do your fucking work. Do your inner work. When you are fully empowered and can come to your work and whatever that space that is, it doesn't matter if you work in venture capital versus uh the stuff that we do, that doesn't matter. You will be most effective and most clearly aligned and understand how to be in clear alignment when you understand yourself at a very core level, and that is doing shadow work, that is doing meditation, that is creating greater self-awareness, that is doing inner child healing. Like it's doing all of the things that continue to peel back the layers and release old programs that are dense and heavy and not helping you from really understanding who you are at your core. I'm off my
100%.
soapbox.
No, it's wonderful. It was funny. I talk about this with yoga too. I love doing yoga asana, but yoga is so much more than just doing the physical poses. And like yesterday, I was so happy. I think it was yesterday. I was like scrolling as no one should be doing, but I was scrolling on social media and I saw a video from a talk by Krishna Murti. I don't know how to say that with an English appropriate accent, but um, a talk from so long ago that I had seen years ago, but it was a short clip where he was like, you're not going to find enlightenment through doing yoga poses. Like, you can do all the fucking yoga poses you want. Of course, he didn't say the F bomb, but that is not how you attain enlightenment. And it goes exactly what you just said. You're not going to get good at reading tarot cards. You're not going to get good at some healing practice because you're doing it. You're going to get good at something and discover a gift. You're going to find enlightenment, nirvana, whatever you want to call it, by doing the inner work and healing yourself. Um, and I think, ooh, now I'm coming full circle to a talk we had like months ago of, remember when I was reading The Art of Being by Erich Fromm? I was like geeking out
Oh
over it,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and he's talking all about like, you know, at our core, we're meant to just be. That's the purpose. You're supposed to just be. But we've flipped society over so many thousands of years that we're all about doing in order to show our value. But doing comes once you've figured out how to be yourself, then you know what actions are fully aligned to you. And we've kind of flipped the program of, we're raising kids in school and education to be doers of whatever makes the most money or provides the most stability in life. But it might be totally far away from what that child's truest gift is if they just had time to learn how to be. And so, yeah, I think a lot of people are putting, what is that? Putting the cart in front of the
Cart before the
horse or
horse. Yeah. Don't worry, I'm down on the south. I can tell you. The cart before the horse.
and that's just not the way to progress. I mean, we've all come from that space though. We were all
Yeah.
raised in this society all over the world of I worked jobs that were totally out of alignment for me. I had to study things in school that I really don't care about and have served me very little in life.
Yeah. Yeah.
But but yeah, that's my soapbox. You can do all
Yeah.
the yoga
No.
poses you want, but you won't reach enlightenment through it.
I know, I know. No, I totally get that. And that's part of the deprogramming process, you know? And I think so many of us don't know ourselves at all. So doing inner work is terrifying because they don't know what they're going to find. And it's this world of being that is so foreign to anything that we've been taught. School doesn't teach it. You know, our parents don't necessarily teach it. Some do, some get it, but I'm not the vast majority of this world. And so I think that is part of the reason why it's so scary to really like go into this void of the unknown because we just don't know ourselves as deeply. But then, you know, we look at these people who just live these lives, show up, and they're effortless, and they say these things that make so much sense, or they have this profound wisdom. And I mean, oftentimes, not all the time, but oftentimes it's probably because they did some deep soul searching and inner work to help them come to these realizations. It's not because they found the right job, you know, or because they had the right degree, or they worked enough hours at their consulting firm. Like, I'm pretty sure that's not how the enlightenment of that information came to them. But, you know, I could be wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why like the story of the Buddha is one of my favorite ones because it a prince who was born into the biggest wealth, the biggest palace. He had everything he ever needed. They hid all the dark things, the sad things, homelessness from him. And one day he was like, "Nah, I want to go outside." And then he decided, "Well, I'm going to go all the way outside and leave my life behind. I'm just going to try a bunch of different things." And eventually he just sat under a tree for a really long time with his eyes closed and saw every dark thing he never looked at before. And that's how he got to Buddha enlightenment or whatever, right? But it's like it's that simple, but in that simplicity, like you said, there's deep vulnerability and that's scary. It's
Mm-hmm.
scary to let go of all the bells and whistles that externally make us feel like we're a big deal or
Yeah.
really liked, when really it comes down to how much do you like yourself? Do you like all parts of yourself? Even the crappiest ones?
Yeah. Yeah, because you have to integrate all aspects of yourself, the things you don't like, the things you do like, the things you judge others for, you know,
Yeah.
they're just aspects of ourselves. Everybody's a mirror. Well, on that note, let's go ahead and wrap up. Think that's a great place to end, like the teachings of Buddha and that story. So I love that. I think that's a
Thank
perfect
you.
place to end. Well, this is
Well,
great. Episode 2. We did it.
episode 2 of Spiritual Kink. It's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
Bam.
Bye, everybody. Hit
Bye.
subscribe, follow along in this crazy journey, all 5 of you or 2 of you.
Yes.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.